I'm here with Chief Christensen from the Harris County Fire Marshal's Office. We have Jeff Lina, our meteorologist with the Flood Control District, Paul Locke, Director of Local Government Relations for Centerpoint, and Mark Sloan, Emergency Management Coordinator. We all lived through this morning. We saw how scary it was. Thankfully, on the sides of storm surge and flooding from the rain and flooding from the channels and bayous, things turned out a little bit better than we expected. In terms of the wind damage, it's a pretty bad situation, as you all know, when it comes to power. And so we're actively working on that. I know Centerpoint is, and for our part, making sure that there's the resources for the community as relates to that. We're still seeing, though, significant street flooding today, so it's still not safe for the rest of the day to leave to the extent that you can. We're asking folks to stay home or where they are. We are beginning our initial assessments right now, and once we have additional information, we'll let people know. So things are calming down. We are going to continue to see improvement as Beryl, as the center, continues to move away from us. We can't rule out some rain, but nothing like this morning. I did speak with my counterparts in the more affected communities where we saw the flood gauges get higher, and from what we have so far from communications with other jurisdictions, it's a similar story. Perhaps a few homes flooded, just an inch, a couple inches of water, but really it was a very limited number, and a lot of trees down, people without power. Same with our neighboring counties. The bayous that are up, whether it be Brays, White Oak, Buffalo, are really high. They're going to keep going down in the next few hours. They drain pretty quickly. In terms of Addicks and Barker, they seem fine. I'll let Jeff add anything afterwards if there's any additional news. But the Army Corps has given us an update. We've been in touch with them. They're releasing water into Buffalo Bayou just because we are in hurricane season, and let's hope not, but certainly it's possible we could have another heavy rain, and we want to make sure there's enough room in there, but it's not causing any kind of additional flooding or anything like that that could impact structures. We've been in touch with them, looking at whether the water could at some point impact Highway 6 or those roads that go through, but so far it looks good. The heat obviously is the big problem. So it's going to be very hot. It's going to be very humid. The heat index, like what we've seen the past few weeks. So the power continues to be the main threat. So far, we've not heard, thankfully, of any additional casualties beyond the gentleman who died in Humble and the lady in Spring. In terms of rescues, we have had a total of 47 high water rescues in Harris County. That's a good number. I mean, we don't like anybody having to get rescued. We don't want to put first responders at risk. But given that we had a Hurricane Beryl through, it's really not as high as it could be. So 32 of those have been done by Harris County agencies, 15 rescues by City of Houston agencies. We are at increased readiness, at level 1 still until later today, and around maybe 6 o'clock we'll evaluate the possibility of going to level 3, increased readiness, just because the threat, obviously the main threat has passed and the flood threat remains, so that's what we're waiting for it to recede. Closures in Harris County, same as yesterday. Tax office is closed, courts are closed, clerk's office is closed. We'll have folks work from home. There are 2.2 million people without power in the Centerpoint service area in the region, around 1.6 million in Harris County without power. So as expected, more people lost power than during the derecho. That 2.2 million is a huge chunk of the service area. So, I mean, we all know the vast majority of us are without power. good news there, and we'll hear more from Paul Locke if people have questions, is, as you know, they had requested 7,000 crews to come down from around the country, and we already have several here, so we were at over 10,000 crews that were going to come. Last time, it took some time for the folks from outside our area to get down here. This time, I'm told there will be boots on the ground. These 7,000 crews will be here in the region working on our lines, working on our poles, and working to do as much as possible to address the power issue. There will also be, according to Centerpoint, a clearer picture of the timeline by sometime tomorrow. So like last time, you'll remember they said, okay, for everybody who's not impacted by a transmission tower, they should be back within this long, and everybody else, it'll be longer, or if it was your own weatherhead or whatever. So we'll have, they're planning to have an answer sort like that with a timetable at some point tomorrow. With the help of first responders, both our engineering department and our fire marshal's office are beginning initial assessments. Those are important for us to see if we can reach the thresholds to achieve federal support for our residents. And also, you know, there may be government buildings impacted, there may be roads that we really need to clear, etc. We are touching base at the staff level as well with all of our 34 cities in Harris County. And as I said, I reached out to several of my counterparts, mayors and county judges in the more impacted areas. First responders are reporting decreases in rescue calls, so that again mirrors the fact that the water is receding. State assets are here. Task forces from the state are here for water rescues. And on the sheltering side, we're actively working to set up shelters. It's going to take a little bit of time. We don't want them open today because we don't want people driving. But as soon as we can do the health evaluation of the shelter, we can make sure there's space for pets, we will inform the public about where they are. I know that there are a lot of medically fragile people in our community, whether it be a health reason or age or whatever it is, and I want to make sure that those who depend on power for their physical well-being more than just the comfort, that they know they can receive help. So if you are medically fragile, dependent on power, you if you're on the STEER list, you will be receiving calls. The teams are working very hard to call through the list where folks have pre-registered and informed that they are medically fragile. So for example, we'll call if we hear that you have an issue with oxygen. We'll figure out a way to get you some. We'll figure out a way to do a wellness check. If you're not registered with the STEER program, we ask that you call 211. If you call 211, you get a whole roster of nonprofit organizations, including the Red Cross, our community services department, that can help you access similar resources. And then once we have shelters, those who want to come will be more than welcome, and we'll be able to support that too. What people need to do, we're not out of the woods yet. I know it's night and day with how it is right now compared to what we had earlier this morning. But we do ask that you stay where you are for the rest of the day, unless you really have to go out. I mean, you can go nearby and check on a neighbor, but that's about it, and here's why. There are a lot of hazards out there. There's debris, there's water. Sometimes you won't know until you turn that there's high water that you now can't back away from. We've all been seeing those cars drive into high water, so don't be one of them. Don't put yourself at risk. Later on tonight, the water will recede further, which is good news, but perhaps some of you have already seen in the news, you know, the cables dangling from the lampposts, a lot of lights out, a lot of stoplights are out. If you see a stoplight that is out, treat it as a four-way stop. But so at night, it'll be even harder to see the hazards. And so let's just wait until tomorrow. Doing a damage assessment on your own property is one thing. Driving around unnecessarily, we really ask that you avoid it. So as we move through the next few days, the biggest threat, ground hazards and lack of power. And as people begin to recover We always want to share our price gouging hotline. So if you work with an individual or an entity that you believe is trying to take advantage of this disaster, please report them so that it doesn't happen to somebody else. The way to report them is to visit readyharris.org or to call 346-354-7459. 346-354-7459. I hope folks know that we're here, we're working through this. I know everyone's doing everything they can to try to get the power back. On the sheltering side, I do think we need to count our blessings right now in terms of the limited impact from the storm surge, from the flooding. We'll be supporting as best we can those that had flooding in their homes. Right now, we don't know exactly who that is. And for everybody else, let's just try to test our patience there with the lack of power. For folks who don't have power, it's very uncomfortable. It's scary on some level, but we'll continue to get through it. And certainly, it was less terrible within the tragedy and within the difficulty than it could have been. Let me repeat in Spanish, and then I'll pass it on to Chief Christensen. Como saben, ya hemos pasado básicamente el huracán Beryl, tormenta tropical, fue cambiando. Ya todo se está tranquilizando y a medida que el centro de la tormenta se aleje de nuestra área, vamos a continuar viendo menos y menos vientos, menos lluvia. Entonces, de aquí en adelante son en general buenas noticias. Ahora, todavía hay esas bandas de lluvia que de repente van a pasar, pero nada muy severo. He hablado con varios de los alcaldes, los jueces del condado, de los condados vecinos y los alcaldes en las ciudades afectadas, y todos me dicen lo mismo que estamos viendo nosotros, y es que hay inundaciones en las calles, algunos hogares, pero no muchos, y si se han inundado será de repente 1 o 2 pulgadas, pero en general el problema más grande es la luz. Entonces me imagino que ustedes están lidiando con esa dificultad, muchos de ustedes. En los bayous, tenemos todavía bastante elevados los niveles en Brace, en White Oak, en Buffalo, pero van bajando. A medida que pase la tarde, va a seguir bajando esos niveles, esas inundaciones en las vías van a bajar, el calor regresará. Entonces vamos a estar alrededor de los 90 grados, pero con la humedad que va a incrementar por lo mojado que está la tierra. Entonces el índice va a ser muy alto, nos vamos a sentir como si estuviéramos a 100 grados Fahrenheit o más. Entonces hay que prepararnos para eso. Las marejadas ciclónicas que podían haber sido un problema grande, al fin no lo fueron. Las inundaciones, la verdad que fue menos de lo que pensábamos iba a suceder. Entonces esas son buenas noticias. En cuanto a personas que hayan fallecido, solamente hasta ahora, igual es muy trágico, pero gracias a Dios no sabemos de más fallecimientos. En adicional, está el señor que murió en Humble y la señora que perdió su vida en Spring. En total, rescates en lugares donde hay inundaciones han habido 47 en total en todo el condado, 32 por departamentos del condado Harris y 15 rescates por la ciudad de Houston. Estamos todavía a nivel 1, el nivel máximo de activación, pero más tarde, entrada la tarde, por ahí a las 6, bajaremos a nivel 3, que es el segundo más leve, y vamos a estar pendientes en lo que bajan las aguas. En cuanto al condado, mañana va a estar igual que hoy, todo cerrado, desde la oficina de impuestos hasta las cortes, y van a trabajar nuestros empleados desde la casa hasta donde sea posible. Hay 2.2 millones de individuos o hogares sin electricidad en este momento en la región, 1.6 millones de ellos en el condado Harris. Entonces es un porcentaje enorme de los clientes totales que tiene CenterPoint, y sé que es muy incómodo. Las buenas noticias es que los 7,000 equipos que vienen de otros estados a ayudarnos aquí en Texas ya están, ya mañana van a estar físicamente arreglando los postes de luz, arreglando las líneas eléctricas. No hay que esperar los varios días como la vez del derecho. Y mañana por la tarde, me dice Centerpoint, ya van a poder darnos más o menos una proyección de cuánto se tardarán en restaurar la electricidad, bien sea para las personas que dependen de que se haya caído una línea de transmisión versus otro tipo de dificultad. Nuestro Departamento de Bomberos y también el Departamento de Ingeniería, con ayuda de los primeros respondedores, ya están comenzando evaluaciones iniciales para ver cualquier impacto impacto mayor a las carreteras o escombros muy grandes que haya que recoger. Estamos en contacto con todas las ciudades del condado, ya está bajando el número de llamadas de rescate. Y ya han llegado las ayudas del Estado. Más que nada son recursos estatales para rescates de agua. Centerpoint, como les dije, ya viene en camino, y en general a largo plazo pues es prepararnos más fondos para el control de inundaciones. Todavía esto no ha acabado. Sé que se ve relativamente bien comparado con esos vientos tan terribles que pasaron esta mañana, esa lluvia, pero como les digo, hay muchas inundaciones, muchas vías bajo el agua, y seguro han visto en las noticias tantos automóviles que se han inundado, ahí se quedaron muchas veces. Uno no se da cuenta que no puede uno pasar hasta que da la vuelta y ya no hay cómo salir. Entonces, si quiere evaluar la condición de su casa, esa es una cosa, pero salir y conducir sin necesidad, por favor no lo haga. Igual no hay casi nada abierto, entonces de verdad intente quedarse donde está hasta mañana. Esta noche, el agua va a ser menor en las calles, pero van a ver los escombros que no van a ser visibles. Además, muchísimas de las lámparas, de las luces en las vías están fallando, no funcionan, inclusive están colgando de cables. Los semáforos también, tenemos cientos de semáforos que no funcionan, entonces pues es peligroso. Bueno, vamos a seguir manteniendo todo el mundo al tanto. En cuanto a refugios, estamos trabajando para establecer refugios para quienes necesiten uno lo más pronto posible. Tarda un poco de tiempo en lo que se evalúa el sitio, la condición del sitio, si puede recibir mascotas. Hoy día no los abrimos porque no queremos que la gente esté conduciendo sin necesidad. Entonces, lo más pronto posible, ojalá mañana. Los individuos que tienen condiciones médicas, que dependen de la electricidad para su salud básica, llamen al 211, hablan español, puede llamar, tenga documentos o no, y se les encontrará alguna ayuda. Por ejemplo, si dependen oxígeno, le llevarán oxígeno, ese tipo de cosas. Igual, bueno, si tiene esos tipos de condiciones médicas, pero no quiere ir al refugio, denos una llamada. Las personas que se han registrado en la lista de STEER, ya las estamos llamando para ver qué necesitan. Lo otro es, final, aquí es la línea contra el aumento injustificado de precios. Van a haber contratistas, vamos a estar trabajando con distintas entidades. Entonces, si ve que alguien está tratando de tomar ventaja, por favor, repórtelos para que no tomen ventaja de sus vecinos. Reporten en readyharris.org o 346-354-7459. 354-7459. Entonces, en conclusión, fue mejor de lo esperado. Sí fallecieron 2 personas, veremos si hay más tragedias, ojalá no, pero debemos agradecer que no fue tan terrible como pudo haber sido. Fue un huracán fuerte, pero en general hemos sido pues bendecidos, y ya ahorita con lo que viene con este calor y sin luz es muy incómodo, es desesperante, pero va a estar trabajando Centerpoint en eso, y al menos para la gran mayoría de la comunidad no va a ser un tema de salud tan serio. Entonces, gracias nuevamente por hacer caso a nuestras recomendaciones, y los mantendremos al tanto. We'll hear now from Chief Christensen.
Good afternoon, Laurie Christensen, your Harris County Fire Marshal. Tonight is going to be critical. We all know that most of us don't have power. I know my family's in the same situation. What I'm going to do is recommend what we're doing. Get with your neighbors. If you can create a social media, maybe chat group or a text thread, do a roll call. Check with your, not only your family members, but your neighbors. That is something we're doing, because what's going to happen tonight is people are going to start using their generators if they have them or they've borrowed them. And what's going to happen is that carbon monoxide that we've talked a lot about. We said over 430 people died last year. It's the silent killer. That carbon monoxide, when you go to bed tonight, it's going to travel into your home if you do not ensure it's at least 15 to 20 feet away from your home. Do not put it under the eaves. Please do not bring it inside of your apartment or your garage or your home. That carbon monoxide that comes off of there is very significant when it develops, and it puts you to sleep, and unfortunately things happen, and we can't even get there to save you because you can't wake up to tell us you need us. So I really want to encourage you, if you're going to use a generator, check with your neighbors. I mentioned yesterday, if you hear a generator cut off and all of a sudden you don't hear it coming back on, or you don't see a neighbor out there, go and check. Let's make sure that they're still okay in their residence. The other thing I want to talk about is, as CenterPoint is working diligently to get our power back on, something we don't think about is power's coming back on. You see the poles that are down. We're going to see, threads of the electricity that's going to come on, then it's going to come on, go off, those sort of things. That being said, if you're not using an appliance such as a coffee pot, you'd be surprised how much electrical energy that uses. Your coffee pot, your washer, your dryer. Unplug anything you don't need, so that when the power is restored to your home, you do not necessarily have an incident where it could create a surge and start a fire. Again, we're going to see this for several days, and I know we've got to start preparing that this may go on for days. But go ahead and make sure your family is safe by preparing your home. Unplug the appliances you don't need. Keep the generators out of your property. Keep them 15 to 20 feet away. If it starts raining again, please do not go outside and begin working on your generator. You could have an electrical shock because of that. Remember, you're plugging in extension cords. Check your extension cords. If you've got extension cords running and you've plugged that into your generator, do not back your vehicle over it. Make sure it's not in a walk area. That could fray that extension cord and again cause serious injury. Our greatest concern is that if you've made it through this storm, we know we have some recovery period. We want you to continue recovering, getting your family back together, getting your power back together, and getting your homes back together. We have first responders out. I was out today riding around. I see the lights. The judge is absolutely correct. If you could stay off the streets, please do. We're out there doing assessments, trying to ensure we clear the roadways so that first responders can get to you as quickly as possible through these streets with the trees. But I ask, please keep an eye on your neighbors, your friends. I know that a lot of you can't watch TV because that's one of the appliances you're going to unplug. But I can tell you, if you're like me, you're never going to let your cell phone go without power. So use your social media, use your contacts, do whatever it takes to stay in touch, and let's keep everybody safe. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll take questions.
Have you been given a timeline on power restoration? I haven't made reference to it both English and Spanish, but I just don't know.
So the timeline, I'm told, is expected tomorrow, but let me wait and see if Mr. Locke has anything to add.
We'll know, we'll have a better idea tomorrow. Excuse me, we'll have a better idea sometime tomorrow on the timeline restoration.
And you've swollen available crews up past 10,000, or there'll be 10,000 workers here to
We've got 7,000 mutual assistance crews, and we've got over 3,000 CenterPoint employees out in the field working to restore power.
And they're actively working right now?
The mutual assistants are en route. Then they'll go through a safety training first thing tomorrow, and then they'll be boots on the ground working around the region.
Judge, you made reference to high water rescues and the number being, it is what it is, but it's relative to other situations. This is a good thing. So you think the messaging was clear?
I really do. I really do. And we saw it in the screens, you know. I go take a little nap and then go wake up and look at it and, oh, wow, still people are not driving around. So I was, I know people do listen, but I have to admit I was still pleasantly surprised, and it paid off. So thank you, because every one of those rescues can be a tragedy. And yeah, I have chills just talking about it. I'm really, really, really grateful that everybody did their part. And I would just say hang in there with us just a little bit longer, because we don't want any tragedies in the next few hours into the night now that the hurricane has passed, that the storm has passed. Thank you all.